Hello, how are you? I'm about to go live over on Facebook, uh, YouTube, and Twitch, and also live on Instagram. So hello everybody. Hopefully everybody's seeing each other and all the rest of it. I've got all my screens open, and each individual, obviously, as you know, social media platforms got its own little chat thing going on. So whichever one you're on, hello, welcome. This is Artcat. My name's Lee, and so yeah, if you want to chat and discuss anything, or post anything up, or talk about anything in particular, or ask any questions, please feel free to do so. It's a bit of a follow-on from last week because we talked about a painting that is behind me here, and about things that kind of stop you from working on a painting, and things that kind of trip you up, and then the kind of fear builds in, and then you don't know what to do, and then you kind of put it away and you kind of do other stuff, and it's sometimes just takes time basically to figure things out that you need to do to a painting before you can change it. Sometimes you need to go back and study certain things, learn new techniques, learn new mediums, new ways of exploring your work. So that's basically what happened with this project. I've been an artist for quite a while. It's not to say I don't know certain things. It was just that I got to a stage with the paintings that the paintings weren't delivering exactly what I wanted them to do. So I had to kind of sit back and analyse what it was that was wrong with them, and sometimes that takes time. Sometimes you kind of get a bit blind to your paintings, and that can happen, say, as you're doing them, and a way of refreshing your eyes might be to turn upside down or take a photograph of it and things like that. But often when you know there's certain things that are wrong and you're not too sure why you've done them, and you have to analyse what it was about certain aspects of your work that you need to change. Hello, Barney, how are you doing? Good to see you. You're over on Instagram. So, what I'll say to you is, guys, whenever you're joining us on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Instagram, Instagram's lovely because it kind of pops up who's joined. If you're kind of sitting in the background and you just want to say hello, that's great, because it just lets me know who's in the room. And also, if you ask any questions, I'll always relate back to where the individual question came from people, so it doesn't get too confusing and kind of juggling cats with social media, just so to speak. So when it comes to your work, your paintings and artwork in general, there is always that element where are you ever fully happy with your painting or your work, and there is always an expectation that you want to do something else, you want to change something, that kind of fiddle in and tweaking towards the end of a painting. But often that's a good time to start a new one and take all of that want and desire and push it into the new picture. But often, like these pictures, I knew what I wanted to say and do with them, but when it came down to actually delivering them, there was something missing, and I had to analyse what that was. And it took me a while to kind of figure it out, and initially it started off by procrastination. And subconsciously I knew there was something wrong, and the paintings were there, and I had this great idea that I wanted to create all these paintings and this body of work, but something was holding me back, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. I was busy doing other stuff and other artworks, but these paintings were in the studio and they were always with me, and I wanted to give them the time that they needed to come to fruition. So often when I come into the studio, I'd be looking at the paintings going, that's not right about it either, that's not right about it, this needs to change. And it wasn't so much a case of knocking yourself down as to the reasons why you're not very good as a painter or an artist. It was to understand, okay, that's what I need to do. I was looking at other artists, I was reading lots of books, I was doing lots of online courses, I was watching lots of YouTube videos, and watching other artists and how they work. Barney, it's good to see you. How's your work going? You're a good painter. I've seen some of your work lately. It's great to see you continuing doing the art. That's Barney over on Instagram, everybody. So as I said, it's taken me quite a while to do. And the thing that got me back into actually tackling them again was doing something completely different. And I worked on a series of work or weren't my work particularly. It was a bit of an exercise, if you like. So the Sky Portrait Artist of the year had a program during COVID called Portrait Artist of the Week, and each week they had a celebrity sitter and an artist who would work, and they would talk about the work, and it was that conversation and artists producing work, and then them encouraging you to paint along each week and have a go yourself and do your own thing. And I was kind of working things out in my head, what it was I wanted to do, painting wise and drawing wise, and what kind of elements I had learned and picked up, and how could I put them into these little portraits. They're like little studies each week, so about 4 hours long. Through that, it reignited my want to get these paintings done. And I think that source of inspiration is an important one. That drive, that kind of self-kickstart to get yourself over the hump of something is what you need to practice. It's a skill. And it's difficult to begin with, because often we're our most harshest critic. And you will hit a stumbling block, and you can push yourself down. And it's, rather than doing that, it's trying to keep your inspiration going, but by allowing yourself to acknowledge the things that need to change, give yourself a direction on how you can change them, give yourself a direction about where you can go to find out the information, sources of inspiration, listening to podcasts, listening to people just chat and talk about it, people like yourself asking questions during broadcasts and podcasts and streams and things like that. Often the questions that you ask are the questions that other people have and a desire to know, but maybe just don't have the words to construct the sentence to ask the question, or might feel a bit kind of self-conscious and a bit, oh, I don't know if I ask that, I'm going to appear stupid. What I'll say to you is this. So Angela, hello, over on Instagram, and Heidi out, how are you doing too? Ask them. There's no question off the table. You can talk about absolutely anything. Sometimes the conversations on these things kind of deviates and goes off into lots of different stuff. But I am going to be working on this paint today. I've done a bit on it already. Some of the guys can see a better shot of it. Sorry, Instagram, you've only got one camera angle view. Some of the guys can see on the other streams there the picture behind me. I'm going to turn you around so you won't see me. Boo-hoo. That's even better, you don't look at me. So I'm going to turn you around a little bit so you can see the picture. Sorry for the light shift there. Let's see if we can get it a little bit better. Hi Angela, good to see you over on Instagram. So, I don't know if you saw this last week, or if you have a look back on Instagram, if you have a look on the page today, I put a post up of what it was like and what it's like now, and it looks like it's done in reverse. This looks like the work in progress, and the other picture looks like it's kind of finished. But there's lots of things that are elementally wrong with the picture, and I started talking about this last week, and I started to change some of the elements. So one of the things is a good question we had was, I think it was a little girl Eleanor on Facebook, about what it was. How do you go about changing it? Where would you start if you don't paint? How can you change it? Well, lucky enough, working in oil paints, I've got a certain flexibility about over painting. Some mediums you can't. You just have to turn a page and restart it again, and certainly that's not a bad thing. You know, it's not a case of if you're turning over and start again you fail. It's sometimes just, it gives you a fresh start, but you're taking all that knowledge you've built up in getting it to a certain stage and moving it into your next picture. So Rosie Parker, hello over on Instagram. Michael, good to see you. So this is where the painting's got. Now, as you can see here, there's a horse, and this horse has now shifted position to here. So it's not as finely painted as this horse was. But initially, where her hand was, which is about here, was way too short for a body. It didn't quite match up. So figuratively and anatomically, it didn't work, because it looked like she was kind of squished in, and how she was holding the horse in her hand, it looked like it was kind of falling off one side. So it didn't look believable. This has a certain surreal element to it. There's lots of elements in here which obviously don't really exist in real life. You know, it's the fact that Julie couldn't hold a horse in her hand in real life. So there's elements that I'm trying to get an illusion of. It's that surrealistic element, if you like. I don't actually see it as real. I call it imaginative there's a term that I've kind of come across, which is imaginative realism or imaginative representationalism. I don't really care about labels too much, but the surrealist, just because it looks a bit weird, people often attach the label to surrealist. So whatever you want to call it, it's that. But there were certain structural elements I wanted to keep certain truth to. So figuratively, I wanted it to look like Julie. I wanted it to look as natural as possible, like she's holding a horse in her hand. And the way I had it, she held a hand out here. Her elbow was up here somewhere, which is anatomically incorrect. It couldn't possibly be that short. Also with the things like the horizon line, where I had it so low down in the picture plane, made it look like Julie was about 50 foot tall, because I had I've got crossroads. You can just see it here as I kind of penned it in. I redrew it back in. So we've got this crossroads that she's kind of imaginatively walked down. And I wanted it to feel like she was in the landscape, and what it made it look like is that she was 50 foot tall and she couldn't possibly have walked across this plane. So I've kind of re-engaged with the perspective of it, and also that has a knock-on effect to the figure. So once you change one thing in something, it often has elements and a knock-on effect to changing absolutely everything else. As I painted this, because I had things kind of finished, I had a hand finished, a face finished. Well, I say finished, it was painted to a stage. Kind of these hands were finished, but what I realised was I'd painted everything in isolation over a period of time, that when you looked at them all together, they just didn't look like they belonged together. Lighting was different, the size and scale was slightly off, but individually they all looked okay. And this is a common occurrence for a lot of people starting out and drawing them, but as an artist going on for some time, I should have really picked that up. And I think it was my what's the word? My own little kind of fears and prejudices over my capabilities as a painter. And I went back to the sort of comfort zone of being tentative. And I kind of went back to that place where when I was painting something, I went back to being really tight and small. So if I made a small mistake, it was only small and nobody noticed. But collectively, as you stood back, there was something which you couldn't quite put your finger on, which wasn't quite working, and it was down to scale. You know, the hand that was holding the umbrella, if you had a look at it last week, was quite small. Her face was quite small compared to the rest of her body. This hand was quite a nice size, but was completely in the wrong place. So I had to literally shift it from here to here, moving it out further forward to allow room and space for a forearm and her elbow to be right in the right position. Where I had a body kind of facing forward this way, the top half of the body twisted that way. So I had this kind of like really broken, bitty, figurative element. So we've got a few more people joining us, because we got El Passon and Zoe Basin joined us. Hello, good to see you over there on Instagram. So guys, if you're, because we're also going live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitch, so if you want to drop hello in the chat when you join, that'd be great, so I know who's in the room. So these are the elements that I've been kind of working out, and it's helped me re-engage with the picture again. It's been lovely getting back. This is going back to the drawing stage, and the way I look at it is I can just see this as a, whatever painting was there before, it's just helping me find the right place now. You know, even looking at this, I keep coming back to it and going, okay, this needs to drop down a bit, this needs to move up a little bit, to give her an idea that she's in this landscape. There's certain elements like this horse which appeared in the background, which I need to get rid of now. So I've re-engaged the shape of this horse as it's got its head turned, so it's a little bit more of a dynamic picture as well. I don't know if you can see that over on YouTube and Instagram. My head's kind of in the way. I'll kind of slide out the way a little bit more. There we are. That helps. So yeah, so where we've got the horse's head is now facing towards us. It's kind of twisted and looking back on itself. I had to think about the shape and structure of the horse. I went back to the simple basic shapes. but obviously it's got its bum towards us with the tail hanging down. How the feet would actually sit on the hand in that space, how the legs would maybe sit on the wrist further up, as though it's kind of trotting towards her elbow. But there's elements now which are starting to sort of get in the way and getting a bit confusing. I do need to look at the face, which I'm going to do kind of today, just to look at the construction. So when I was looking at the basic form of her entire body and her head and shoulders and things, about where certain things came to, it allowed me to re-engage with finding out about how big her head actually was going to be, and I went back into the basic elements of proportions and the structure of the head. You know, if this is the back of the head here, the head needs to come back down off of it to kind of. Judy's got lovely long dark hair, so how that will sit off the back of the head doesn't come straight down; it'll flow down over her back. So it's to understand the physicality of things as well, and put all these different elements together. So that's where we're at. So I'm going to work a little bit on her face today. I was happier now because I've kind of widened this hand a little bit, that it feels like it is actually gripping onto an umbrella that sort of size, whereas before it was so timid, I think was the word, and I was so hesitant over certain elements. I went back to the basic anatomical structures of the body, so looking at where the sternum was, where the clavicle would be, where the shoulders would be, the length of the elbow coming back down, movement of the materials that might come over the top of it, the length of her forearm holding this umbrella. On the original picture the wrist was tiny and it was way too small for the size of the painting. So yeah, coming right back down to where the navel would be, where the hips would be in placement, and how the body would twist around. So this would be the front of the body, and just how maybe the hips would work coming down. So it starts to have figuratively more structure, and this is getting back to the basics of the composition as well. So I'm not losing anything when it comes down to the concept of it, but the physicality of the figure being in this painting to deliver the concept had to change, because otherwise it wasn't going to work, and it would look weird. And weird because, not because she's carrying a horse, it would look weird because her hands were too small or her face was too small. And subjectively, if you just kind of, I mean, like if you just flick to the initial picture that I put this up about 2 years ago, you look at you kind of scan past and go, yeah, it's all right. But looking at it in person, in real life, there were elements which just stuck out. I don't know if you have had any similar aspects to your work where you have to rework a painting. It can feel really daunting to begin with, that you're painting over all the work that you've done. You may have rendered something which works really, really well, but you realise that it needs to move and you're unwilling to move it. What I'm going to say is you have to be brave. You have to shift things, you have to move things around until they are in the right place, and you can repaint the hand or the head again without necessarily ruining the picture, but making it better because it's a better position for it, and because it's a better position it reads better as an entirety as a picture. So there we go. Eckhart, nice to see you on Instagram. So yeah, if you have got any questions, ask away. I'm going to work on a face a little bit. I'm just working in oils. I kind of chose a colour which wasn't in the palette and not on the picture, so I could really see the forms and structures. I'm going to go a bit darker now for a face, because where I'm using the sort of same colours, these become a bit more fleshy. That I want something to really contrast to help me kind of figure where certain things are. So I'm actually going to go for a blue mixed with a brown, just giving you a darker look and picture to it. So one of the elements I need to do is to look at where her chin is actually going to be positioned, because that will have a knock-on effect to the rest of it. Place her chin base of her chin about there, and then I can look at the structure that where not necessarily the top of her head would be here, but where the her parting and her hair would meet, come to, so it'd be the position of their hairline on her forehead, which in this particular piece is going to be about here. So I've got an idea of where her facial plane is going to be. I then get an idea that I might need to bring this head up a little bit to compensate for that, because the hair sits on top of the skull. So if I just drew it to the pure anatomy of a skull, the hair wouldn't look real. Oh, that's very kind of you, Sir Eckhart. It's looking great so far. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we're talking about today, is getting back to the painting that wasn't right and changing it. And so a lot of the work that you see is being over-painted on a painting that was kind of left aside for quite some time. The mammalian portraits were started about 2 years ago, and it's a conversation with a lot of really lovely good friends that I've got, and we talked about basically anything. The premise of it was that the person I was chatting to, all these are based on good friends of mine, and excuse me, there would be just sort of conversation, but the portrait would be based on the conversation, not necessarily on the physicality of them on the day. I did take reference shots on the day. I did a pencil sketch of them, from them, at that time on the day. But I went away and worked out compositions, and the idea was to do a painting about that conversation. The only thing I asked each individual person, which was the same, was if you could describe yourself as your animal, what would it be? And allowed that to kind of be a kickstarter to talking and having a conversation. Now, it wasn't particularly hard, because it was more of a joy to go around and see your friends and have a chat, especially during COVID, where you're not being able to see them, and just re-engage with that conversation I had kind of 2 years ago. Has been nice. So I think there's been an element of that that's come into the pictures, and that's kind of certainly helped re-engage with the project as well, I think. So I started this about 2 years ago. I've painted one of them, which worked okay. I was quite happy with it. It was the first painting of the series, and even now I'm quite happy with it still. There's little things I can tweak on it. But there was a second one, which I don't know if you've seen on Instagram, of a friend who's carrying a small orangutan, and that was the same. It got to a stage where I did the underpainting of it, the underdrawing of it, and I just didn't know how to paint it. I just there was not enough of my own knowledge there to give it the qualities that I wanted, and I started repainting again. Now, it's not to say that by the time I finished this series, the very first painting I painted couldn't be better because I could paint it again. That's always the case, and I think there's a stage where you have to set things down and leave them as they are, because it shows your progression as an artist. Michael, you're asking over on Instagram, are you working from a photo now of your friend? You said you took some sketches, or maybe facial features aren't too important for this one. No, the facial features are important. I have got a reference shot of Julie for this picture, but there's been certain things that she wasn't doing on the day, which are purely imaginative, and I have to think about them, the physicality of them. So there's certain elements that I have to stay true to. So there's a likeness that I want to try and capture. I'm just really kind of re-engaging where the faces at the moment. So I'm looking at the big shapes still, but I'm working from a reference for likeness, but not so much. I'm not worried about it too much today. I want to get the positionings of things right, just so I can see how it fits on a whole before I start going into detail and rendering certain things, because there's no point to that. And that was my key problem from before, where I was getting so stuck in and getting details of things done. I spent time doing a horse beautifully, but it was just the wrong place, and it was too big for the structure of what was going on. It didn't fit on a hand, and the arm was in the wrong position, and all those little elements that I hadn't really kind of considered when I was doing it, which sounds ridiculous now, but it's a case that we all do it. So there are elements that I want to get like a likeness. Um, and part of this is finding out where those likenesses are going to be. You know, I can put in the structure of a head and features and then go, do you know what, it's still too small, I have to paint it bigger. Or oh, that's too big, I have to reduce it in size. Good question though. So yeah, if you're working from references, that's fine, but it's how you use your references. They've still got to fit within your picture. So there, as I said, there are some elements which don't exist, so I have to create them from imagination. Some elements do exist. The umbrella doesn't exist. Although I have got a shot of her with an umbrella, it's not this umbrella, so I have to look at how this umbrella will actually work. Does your sound a little low, or is that just me? Oh yeah, do let me know if you can't hear me. I'm kind of working off a headset here for a live feed that I'm doing on Instagram, Twitch and YouTube. So it could be because I'm facing a different direction when I'm painting. That's why the camera's not picking it up, unfortunately, so sorry about that. I'll shout louder if that works. So Belfast Picnic, hello, good to see you. So yeah, I'm going to be doing facial features. I am going to be working just on kind of placement for things rather than say necessarily working on the accuracy of detail. So just how lines and angles and things like that kind of work at the moment. Understanding that's her forehead coming down to where her eye is, and it comes back in this way a little bit, and back out for the cheek this way. And it comes kind of straightish down a little bit, and it goes back towards the chin this way before it goes straight down here, which then gives me a better indication of where this eye actually goes. In conjunction with the size of the forehead. So I'm looking at shapes. And scale of things. And it looks very kind of limited at the moment. So I don't know if you can see that too well. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit with an Instagram. Hopefully this will work. Bear with me. It's a little bit light looking. Yeah, that works a little bit better. And likewise, I haven't forgotten about your Instagram. Sorry, YouTube and Facebook. Hopefully that'll work for you guys as well. So we're going to concentrate on the face a little bit. You'll get to see it in conjunction with everything else. Yeah, so I'm looking at scale of things. So how this line of her nose comes down here, and gives an indication to where a nostril might be on that side. Going across her nose, that's the base of her nose there, and a nostril on the other side. But I can also look at the shadow shapes that are created as well. So it's the shadow that comes down from the side of the nose. And then there's this other eye on this side. It's kind of like the shadow of a eye socket, and an eye just about there. The indication of where the eye orbit stops there, and then where the rest of the face comes in. Sorry, the rest of the nose. This is the bridge of a nose. And I refine this as I go along. Maybe a bit more paint on there. I'm going to make this a bit stronger. Far stronger than it'll end up being, but just so I can see it today. So if that comes down that way, this is all in shadow. And this whole area is in shadow there. It comes out a bit more this side, just for that nostril. The base of the nose there. The eye is there. It comes out a little bit there, and back in to join these two things together. So it's just, again, it looks very kind of basic in its painting form. The elements in it look very clunky. It's going to be a lot more refined as a painting. But again, this is just about finding the structures right. Once I've done this, I can stand back and go, sure, do you know what, this needs to be bigger still. I'm using my reference to give me edges and shapes rather than looking at detail. So this chin actually comes down to about there. And the distance from the corner of a mouth to the corner of a nose is about there. And where the top lip is from the base of the nose is about there. These two things angled together. Coming back down the other side this way. So I'm getting the attitude of a head pointing in a certain direction. I think this needs to be a little bit further over this way a little bit, so bring that hairline in to crop her face a little bit. And this chin line comes underneath this way and around. The bottom lip will be about there. This is a bit of a shadow that's underneath that bottom lip. Take that back a little bit. Move the shadow out a little bit more. So again, it's very blocky. There's no real detail in it. And I would have probably done this as an underpainting because we start in this in a very sort of loose washy way, but because there's paint on there I won't be able to see it basically, so I have to kind of put more paint on than I would have normally. I'm learning more as I paint as I go along. there's more subtlety to this side, so I know that this bit comes out a bit more. And then back in that way. So using, same with cloth, I should use a cloth rather than my finger. I can pull that paint off just to re-sculpt certain areas. I'm going to go in for the lighter colour. Again, these aren't the right colours yet. This is literally just finding the structures in the right place on the painting that I have there already. So where this chin is actually down here, so I'm lengthening her face a little bit. So her chin down here. Chin gives me width for that side of her face. And how that comes up to that part of the nose here. And I think I can move the eye down a little bit as that comes out. A nice shadow on the bridge of her nose. No, that way. It's just helped me see that I need to kind of just maybe broaden that bridge of a nose on this side. The forehead that she's got is a little bit lighter on this side, so this angles down this way. So really just painting back over, building in the forms. It's much more sculptural while you're working. Don't know if you find that when you're working yourself. Different mediums sometimes dictate different kind of approaches or processes. And how you construct your picture and refine it as you go on. This is something I would have normally done, and I did, but I did it in isolation. So where I have more, I had more subtlety in the painting. I'd just kind of painted over. It wasn't the right scale, and as refined as the painting was before this, it was wrong. So it's a case of I had to keep on working. I have to now go back in and refine it and work it properly. And it's taught me a lot about how I can slow down and see my picture better, refine certain elements of it. And this part of the eye orbit comes down that side. A slight highlight on her eyelid. These are all structures, so I'm going to stand back in a second and just have a quick look at it and see what else I need to kind of shift. I know that this chin needs to come out a little bit. You can see that already. And there's a slight curvature just of that kind of, I call it the barrel of the mouth, and where this is slightly lighter as well. That filter on that top part of her upper lip. And we'll find that coming down this way. I don't want to get too stuck into refining this. This is literally just finding the structure, finding out the proportions of her face. Stand back, look at it, see how it fits in with its entirety. Then I can go back in and refine it a little bit more. So just breaking up some of these shapes that I've got. It's a lot lighter on here. There's like a lovely highlight, but gives a good indication about how wide this element is before it goes up, which brings that whole shadow down a little bit. So I'll bring that down. And how this angle works comes out a little bit further than I've got it, which widens that part of the head there, which gives more space for her chin, because I've got the angle going up a little bit too stark. So I'm going to lower this, just soften the angle so it comes around to this part of the front part of her chin, if you know what I mean. So this bit goes around, which is a little bit softer then. So all these elements are starting to structurally look a lot better. Other than not as well refined. I can kind of stand back and see that I need to kind of refine and darken this edge down a little bit just to give you better structure. I need to soften this curve of where this chin outline is. I need to bring this in to be a little bit sharper here, and also it needs to be out a little bit further up here, so allow it to join to the rest of the forehead. The rest of this kind of disappears into shadow up here. I'm just going to go to the other darker pen, brush. So that's more in shadow. So it comes out there, back in to the corner of her eye. This is a bit more sharp than that sharp. It's a sharper angle than that sharp. So let's soften that again. The transition around the side of her cheek comes into her nose a little bit more, then comes back out. It's funny how the undulations of her face kind of go in and out, help you really get the structure of it. So it comes down there, moves back in this way. And then there a little bit, and then down. So this chin I've got sitting way back here is actually further out. And it comes down a bit more, which has a knock-on effect to her mouth. And if that's the corner of the mouth on that side, the corner of her mouth needs to come across a little bit further, a bit more. Let's put a whole new colour on there. it comes out that far. This comes in on this angle a bit more, and then from about there it comes straight then. There's a slight upturn to the bottom jaw. Just reposition where this corner of the mouth is, because as things have shifted and changed, they do need to move. So the corner of this mouth needs to go up just a little wee tad. This is where the corner of that nostril is going to be. Quite happy with the line of that hair goes. Just going to strengthen that line. That way. So, as you see, it looks very chunky and clunky. There's not much refinement in it. This is just purely about positioning before I rush ahead. There's lots of elements in painting where you can kind of get carried away with elements of it, and it's when you stand back you go, oh, they just don't work. There's elements that you kind of get lost in, but collectively don't work. I'm just going to soften this edge a little bit. I just feel as though this eye needs to come up a little bit more. A bit of a shadow that goes up that way, which gives more space to this bridge. I think the positioning of this element of her eye there is quite nice. And I can bring this shadow out a little bit more. Possibly where I've got that forehead a little bit too sharp on this side, so I'm going to lighten that up a little bit as well. Just soften it, bring it out. So yeah, guys, if you've got any questions, Draw Mode over on YouTube. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, if you've got any questions, anything you're working on as well at the moment, do let me know. I've got a couple of people joining us over on Instagram. We've got Harrison Boland, hello. How's Portadown doing? Nikki, artist, hello, and A. Appinson, Northern Lights. So just to give you a rundown, if you just joined us, basically this is a painting that I started about 2 years ago and sat in the studio, got to a stage and I just stopped, and it was about re-engaging with the painting and looking at it holistically, just to see what you need to change, how you need to change it, what elements need to kind of need to move around. Um, so when you change one thing, it has this like domino effect on everything else. I was trying to figure out for ages what it was I needed to do to improve the paintings. Part of it was my technique, part of it was my knowledge, part of it was to change what I had painted, and there's like an unwillingness to redo things you've already done once before. Susan Boyd, hello, welcome over on Instagram. Um, so these paintings called Mammalians, this particular one had sat in the studio, got to a stage, and I was happy-ish with it at the time, because of the likeness I had of Julie's face, but the size of her face was just way too small, and the size of her hand holding the umbrella was way too small, and the positioning of her arm on the other side was just out of kilter. I'm going to zoom you back now, just so you can see kind of its entirety. It's changed quite a lot. As you can see, again, this horse that was sat on her hand before was way too high up because you can't physically hold where you could. You have to put yourself in a really weird position. So I had to change things around. I just had to move it, and there was kind of this little bit of unwillingness. One out of my own stupidity because I painted something so in such a bit of way that it couldn't possibly be, and I had to kind of physically move stuff. And so yeah, you have to kind of bite the bullet sometimes and change things. But part of me was kind of going, oh, well, what is it about the way I've painted it? Why is it done that? So it was learning and looking at my inadequacies, which nobody likes to face, and being really honest and saying, look, I just need to move it and change it. It's taken a while to get to find the inspiration to do it again, re-engage with not necessarily the projects. The project is based on the people that I know, my friends, which I really like the idea of it still. The one thing that was holding me back was my capabilities, and I knew there were certain aspects to the painting which weren't right, and it's just because I was making silly mistakes because of my confidence, I think, and it's rebuilding that back up. And admitting that you've done something wrong can feel like you're knocking your confidence a little bit, but looking at what you do need to change can give you a good guide into how you need to rebuild things. But again, when you work, for me in this process, you might be different, and I don't mind if you are different, and if you do something different, I'll look at my process and go, oh my god, that's awful, what are you doing? It's fine. It's a case of every artist is going to find their own voice, and you'll find your own route through things. Now, you have to be honest to what that aim is, and where I knew what my aim was, my actual process didn't suit it, and I've had to kind of re-engage with doing some going back to basics in lots of ways, which has been no bad thing. It's really helped me kind of build a better voice in what I'm doing, I think, and seeing the picture for what it is, and allowing some freedom to come into the picture. It's quite messy painting at this stage because everything's blocky and unrefined. And just trying to reevaluate where the edges of this profile are going to be a little bit harsh to begin with, and I can soften them up as I go along. It's going to be bolder with that hair coming down now. And softer just underneath this part. I've got this line coming down very vertically for chin, and it's slightly angled, so I'm going to take a little edge off of that. So again, you might not be able to see the perfect shot of this on Instagram, so apologies for that. I'm working with one iPhone or one telephone camera. Makes it look very pixelated when you get closer to it, but I think you can see from what we had to what we now have, her face, size wise and compared to the rest of her body, is better than what I initially had it, even though the initial painting before I repainted over the top of it looked more like Julie. It will get back to that stage, but structurally this is better, which means that rendering that I will finally do onto this face will make a better painting. So I'm just talking today about how being brave and changing things, you kind of need to bite the bullet sometimes. Looking at that size of her face now, I can see how this hair is going to move across the top of it and come down this side. Get it. Some paint on the brush. I'm going to block this whole area in so we can sort of see the size and scale of her head. I'm going to pay close attention not to go over this umbrella band too much, but understanding that this whole area is going to be dark. There'll be little bits of highlight on there, obviously because it's kind of giving that illusion of a light coming on underneath the umbrella, so it's going to shine down on the hair, but structurally this all of the dark hair is there. How, if that's the middle of her forehead, now it'll go over that way, we'll raise the back of the head up a little bit. So just darken this whole area down. And the back of the head coming back out here. So where we had that, I don't know if you agree, where we had that before, size and structure wise, what it looked like, it feels like that head now belongs to that body, whereas before the face was way too small and it didn't. And that was the same problem I was having with that hand on the umbrella, and it was a similar problem I was having with how this arm looked, because that was then too small. And I'm going around methodically changing it. And what I can do now is start blocking other areas in to give more structure and push this figure forward, to give more believability to the landscape that I'm going to build in, and the composition of where this umbrella will kind of emerges out of the darkness a little bit. So There's still some structures in there which I need to refine, and how this hair will do certain things, like it'll kick out a little bit as it comes over her face and then fall back down as gravity grabs hold of it. But as it comes down, it goes over the back of her shoulder and also down across the front of it as well, so allowing this whole area. I do want to give it a little bit of a nod to where her neckline is, so, and that's all darkened there. How that neckline will come round. Even though you won't be able to see a neckline, it's still getting an understanding about how that neckline is going to come up and go over that shoulder down the back, to give an idea about where this shoulder is coming out. And that'll help redefine sort of the back of that hand a little bit. Coming down into that wrist. This whole hair is black as well, down here. I'm using kind of a blue mixed with alizarin crimson. It's going to be very much a bluey black as to this. It's like a purpley colour, it's almost that's picked up on it. So we've got a few people joined us over there on Instagram. We've got Susan Bayot and Vanessa Powell. Good to see you. Again, if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome. Over on YouTube, Vaibhav Rana is in India. The time is 7:27, and here it is. It's just turned 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not too far behind you. That's one thing I love about doing these streams, is that you are connected with people right across the world, and it's also interesting to find out what people are working on and doing. Obviously things in lockdown have been particularly difficult for everybody, but it's interesting to see how different parts of the planet are kind of coping with lockdown, and how it's affected their practice, and what it is they're doing differently, how things are opening up, how galleries are working, doing lots of online things. I'm just bringing this shoulder down this way a little bit, because I think I had it a little bit too high up. She's wearing a kind of very fluffy top. It's like faux fur, which I quite liked, it on top of a leather jacket, which kind of fits with the whole idea of this piece. Now we're starting to see more of how that kind of fits in. It's a very flat way of painting at the moment, this structure. There's no detail in it at all. I'm just giving the illusions of where the structures are, but certainly it's better than where it was before. I said before, we've got elements of this horse as well, which I'll come on to in a little bit. This just helps me figure out where her shoulders are. The reference pictures I've got, she's actually got her hand in a pocket, which kind of pushes this shoulder up. As she's got her hand dropped down, she's holding a horse out in front of her. It's moved her shoulder forward and dropped it a little bit, which has a movement difference there to the hair that is now on. I'll going over the back of the shoulder, but also coming down over the front of it. And where this arm actually comes out. Structurally there. It's a figurative element as well. So I talked about the sternum, how that kind of goes out and then back down for the centre line of the body, where that comes to. Where our elbows kind of need to match up. They're not matching up on a straight line because there's a gravity kind of moving it towards, or the perspective moving it towards this way. But certainly I think where I had her hand coming out, her elbow was up here somewhere, which is way too short. So dropping that down has given more reality to the whole piece as well. And that elbow coming out there. So, we'll comments on other places. No, nobody's chatting. Everybody's just very quiet today. Last week was buzzing. Loads of people were asking questions and joining in about what they saw, what needed to be changed, and things like that. A fresh pair of eyes, I mean, one of the best things that I'm very lucky to have as an artist is a partner who sort of comes in and just says, that's too big, that's too small, because they're looking at it out of context, and I never take it personally. If they're noticing things that I'm not noticing, having that fresh pair of eyes is a valuable asset. And if you are working by yourself and you don't have that luxury, taking honest stock of what you've done, often sort of the day after when you come back into the studio, just to assess, sit down for 5 minutes just with your piece, with your picture, analyse it, look at it, and adjust. It can give you sort of ideas on what you need to do for the day to work on it. Even doing this, I'm kind of noticing just a little bit, I need to kind of just soften this chin just ever so much, just to the edge off that corner, to make it feel like it's going around that face. It will be more and more refined as I go along. It's, as I say, very kind of messy looking picture at the moment, but that's okay. It's just what it needs to do to kind of change. I'll be introducing where the handle sort of comes out. It gives the illusion that it turns and goes underneath into the hand. And then back up that way. Which may put it down a little bit more. And a bit more structure to where this wrist is. This is how this jacket moves around that wrist as well. So use some of that pink again, just to give me some structure. like a zip up part of that cuff. It may come down that way, but then so I've got to think about some of the material qualities to this thing as well. Where she's wearing a leather jacket over this kind of a softer, smoother structure because of the leather jacket. This is a much fluffier top, so I'm breaking up the edge so it's not a harsh edge. If that makes sense. And same thing on this side. It's very smooth looking on this side. This is going to be a little bit more broken. Might give an edge of it here just as it's leaning forward. So just think about the qualities of the material, the physicality of things. You know, if you move your arm forward, your sleeve would kind of come up a little bit. So as this is more like a wrap going across the front of the body, and then as it comes out here, it kind of drops down. But that means that this is going to be broken there as well. So give it some sort of structure and believability that this has to fall around. So there might be a bit out the back, so you can start to see it. So this is all kind of fluffy. But much darker over here as well. Anything I do today in the painting, as I said, I'll review back tomorrow when I come to the studio, and I can start to see how the materials look. It's going to be folds as well, how that is going to drop back to that arm, and it's going to move forward. It's going to be further forward, or at the top part of the chest, and it will drop down. This whole area will be darker. Paint that with a larger brush. This little element I'm kind of keeping as well. There's a little element of this kind of tab that sticks out of that cuff, which is kind of worked out to be in the right place, which is great. If I zoom out there so you can see it on the picture. There you go. Yeah, so just see how that would come over the back of that arm, sitting on top of that arm. You've got to think about the physicality of the actual where the arms are, but then the clothing around it and on top of it. Michael, you're asking, do you tend to use the same size canvas for this type of painting, Lee? You love the underside of the umbrella. Yeah, I mean that's going to be more refined as well. One of the things I was finding frustrating with it is it looks okay, but I think where some of my arcs were different, that I need to kind of uniform those as well. This has gone a little bit bouncy. There's a smoother arc across this way. Get some paint on there. You can just tweak that as well. So that I want to get these kind of smooth scalloped edges as they come down to each little frong of the umbrella. And that was a little bit too kind of too arched, and it needs to soften. Again, then get sort of the believability of that ellipse, of the circular nature of the umbrella, and hell on this side. It's going to come down that way, and then it's going to come over that way. All that needs to be in darkness. That one's okay. It's like a perspective and foreshortening of it, which kind of now fits better in this landscape, whereas before it just looked a bit weird. I should be able to before, I think, where I had the horizon line down here, and where the umbrella was, I would have been able to see much more on the inside of it, which would have meant that, yeah, I could have possibly seen more of the umbrella underneath. But because I'm looking at it more straight on now, it's narrowed the underneath of that umbrella, which makes it more realistic. I need to bring more lights out to this area with all the little bit of laciness, but it diminishes as you get towards the corner of it. But certainly that's where the arc of the umbrella is I'm quite happy with. I think it just comes around there a little bit more. So yeah, size of the canvas. Get back to your question. Sorry, before I got lost in the painting. No, the goal's going to be slightly different. I know I've done 2 on this kind of metre square. I think the other one I did of lady holding the orangutan, I think it was about 80 centimetres tall by 60, 70 wide. The next one will probably be the same as the orangutan one. All of them are slightly different scales. It just depends on the composition. It's the composition that's kind of dictating the canvas format. I wanted something more I wanted to be her in a landscape, so I wanted to give that space for the landscape. If I was just doing the portrait itself, I probably could have chopped an element off each side and not necessarily had it as a metre square. The next one that I'm doing, it's not. There's elements of the background, but I don't necessarily need so much background to depict what I want to depict. So it probably won't be a metre size square. The other piece I have that you may have seen of Stephen stood with a large white, long-haired lurcher on Bangor seafront, the town near where we live. That was about his landscape and his environment as well, so that needed a bit more space around it. So yeah, the compositions and concepts for each picture often dictate its scale and size, rather than having a canvas knocking around and then trying to put a painting into it. The kind of compositions kind of dictate what format and scale they're going to be. I'm just trying to think if there's any portraits that I've got which are going to be small. It's something lovely about a small canvas or picture having intimacy. It's like it brings you close to it. There's a jewel-like quality to them, and certainly I think maybe 1 or 2 which might necessitate that. I can think 1 or 2 specifically back to the conversations that I've had and back to the friends that I've got, which might dictate that. There's 1 or 2 which I feel like I want to do on a massive scale, but I just don't have the scale studio-wise to do it. So I have to think about, curating it a little bit differently, should we say? But yeah, very good question. Often we have sketchbooks or canvases, and we try and push the painting onto that canvas, and that's what we end up struggling with, is the scale. when you're setting things out, you can work it out compositionally. One of the things I thought I did initially in this picture was work out compositionally where everything was, but then I think I was so excited about getting stuck in to the painting, I kind of didn't really consider all of those elements fully enough, which has made me slow down as a painter. Think about how things need to fit into those spaces and into those shapes and forms. I'm not going to work on them too much on the face. I'm going to let that kind of settle a little bit, and then probably when it's dried in a little bit, soften the entire brushwork on it, and then I can go back over it and then look for the colours. Then it'll start to work on it. I can start looking at how highlights is going to be sort of backlit. I'm going to work off the back of this fluffy jumper thing. Also on this side. Come back down here. I need to look at this horse. Let's see. I've got a couple of reference shots of a horse down here. It's more structurally, because even the reference shots I've got are never going to fully be perfect for this particular horse, because it's imagined. It's going to be a dark horse, so there's elements that I need to change colour wise. But again, with this is structurally, just thinking about how a horse actually is in physicality, about where these elements are going to kind of join up. How spindly a horse's legs are as well. Because it's a dark horse, there's actually quite a lot of reflected lights on it, and so that's good, an interesting element. That's the part of this hoof that comes down there. The angle of the hoof is going forward, so there's a bit just at the back there. Drops down that way, which means that then I get to understand where the structure of this other leg is, which comes down this way, kind of ignoring the tail that can drop straight down from there at the moment. So looking at, if you can see that, you can see just in the bottom corner. What I might do is just spin it down and zoom in and move it around a little bit for you. There we are. So you can see that a little bit better on Instagram if I zoom in a little bit more for you. Move that up. It's very sort of misty looking on Instagram. Sorry the colours are not, if I move into the frame there, as it darkens down behind me, you can kind of just see it, but as soon as I move away it goes light again for some reason. I think cameras and camera phones look for faces and they just light to that, but anything else it kind of bleaches out. But so you're getting a very sort of wishy-washy looking colour to it. If I move back again, that's, if you look behind me, there. No. I was trying to get it to stay. Sorry for everybody else on Facebook World and YouTube and Twitch. But I think you can get the structure of what we're looking at here. I think you're getting a much better view than the other formats. If I zoom in a bit more, you'll get to see the structure of this horse. Where this horse was sitting before on her hand, I had it kind of just straight across, very, very flat looking. You can see the elements of it here. And what was the problem was the back legs kind of were teetering on the fingertips, but the front legs were falling off of her arm. So if this horse was to be on this hand, the back legs were here, and the front legs were here somewhere for the size of the horse, which didn't have any believability to it. So I've had to change the position of it as though it's walking up her arm, which has changed both the structure and the look of the horse, which meant this was never going to work. As much as the time I'd spent painting it, it was just wrong. And this is what I was going back to those things. If there's something wrong in your picture, you just need to be honest with yourself and change it. And if it means, painting over it, you have to paint over it. And if it means turn it over and doing it again, turn over the page and do it again, you'll get to a better painting, and that's what's really going to fulfill you. If you're going to fudge it and go, "Oh, that's what I meant it to be," or "Oh, it'll be okay, nobody will notice," the thing is, you noticed, and that's what's always going to be a frustration. So be brave and change it. Be brave and turn over that page and redo it, or paint over what you've done. And it might be the best horse that's ever been painted. I'm not saying that this is, but you might be really, really pleased with it. But if it's gonna be in the wrong place, it's just gonna be wrong, and you've got to be brave and change it, paint over it. I'm actually gonna say goodbye to this horse and just paint in more paint into this area, just to get rid of it, so it's not confusing the image that I'm now trying to recreate and paint. Joshua, how you doing over on Instagram? How you doing? I don't know if you remember. I don't know if Barney was in your year at college, but he's been on today. It's good to see people from different places. There's some amazing artists on Instagram, and some of them have been doing these brilliant podcasts and live streams, either with interviews that they're having, or insights into their processes and artworks. It's one of the best resources, is going directly to the horse's mouth, so to speak, because I'm painting a horse now, to kind of figure some of the things out. How other artists look at their work can help you reflect on how you look at yours. Hopefully this is what you're going to get out of today as well, is that when you see something in your work, acknowledge it if it's a success, but also if there's areas of your work that you need to change and develop, change them. It's okay, that's part of the process. It's how we develop as an artist, I believe, and it's very easy to get distracted and waylaid by, "Oh God, this isn't right, and it should be better than this, and why didn't I know?" But truly, by seeing your work with a little bit of clarity, it makes some decisions very, very easy. This horse is in the wrong place, paint over it. I'm just going to create like a grey dark green. Eventually I'm going to put this highlight in. Actually, I'll make it a bit more brown. Where I had the my horizon was down here. This is all going to be ground, moving off to an horizon. So if I put this in as a slightly stronger line now, a bit more flow to that paint, and I can say goodbye to that horse. I'm going to put more detail into that background, and I don't mean like individual grass and things like that, but certainly to give more believability of this landscape. This horizon's going off in this direction, but I need to kind of get rid of that horse a little bit, because it's going to always be in the way of painting this horse, if you know what I mean. So just to help me find the form and the shape of it, I need to get rid of that other horse. this is an element of the crossroads that come up this way. And then I can look at the structures of that jumper coming down this way. If I zoom the camera out for you guys on Instagram, you can see, sorry, on YouTube. So I'm just going to draw that element of that horizon line. It actually goes off picture. The important element is to give the idea of the perspective of the if I could say it right, the elements of perspective in the picture. It's not going to be, it won't have this sort of strong, bright crisscross effect. This is just an element of redrawing the painting so I can paint it properly. Eleanor Jane, hello, good to see you. Eleanor, you were asking about how I painted this over last week, and this is what we've been working on today. So literally using I'm using like a reddish pink to draw some of the lines out, restructure, redraw basically the entire thing over what was already there, and I'm starting to block in areas now where I had the horse initially in the background here, also up here as well. I'm going to block this all out. This horizon line will be a little bit lighter in the background in the sky, going into a very, very dark sky at the top. But for now, just putting this darkness in, it just helps give a sense of structure to the piece. And there we go. Let's do it like that. It's very cathartic, painting over stuff which is just not right and things that you're not happy with. It's like almost forgiving yourself for all the errors that you've made by just getting rid of it. But in the process, it's not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, it's to kind of see where you need to change things, allow it to kind of inform you where new elements need to go. Soften that horizon line a little bit there. I'm not going to worry about that side too much. I might put this, because this is a bit light still. So if you've got a painting or a picture that you're kind of struggling with and you've given it lots of time and trying to find that inspiration to re-engage with it again, being bold with it, if you need to change things, be bold and changing them can be quite cathartic, because you can actually start to see where things are then. If I zoom out a little bit on Instagram, hopefully you can get to see that. Gives a better structure to where things are. Can I get rid of this line as well? This is the previous crossroads, which is now up here. I can paint colours over the top of a black canvas, that's fine. I'm not worried about that too much. I can refine where this crossroads is going to be later. This is just structurally right now. There won't be these white lines. Just getting the paint on there. I'm making sure I'm not putting too much texture in to the paint. I'm keeping it quite flat as an application because I don't want the textures to be there when I start refining it. So I'm making sure that I'm not leaving any big blobs of paint on the surface, that when I kind of render it and smooth it over, they kind of just start to disappear a little bit. So yeah, if I want texture, I'll put it in, I'll paint it in, but I don't want to accidentally put texture in by just slapping paint on. Because then, and 9 times out of 10, if you put a big blob of paint on it, you kind of let it sit for a while, it'll be the place that you actually need to put a bit of refinement. And if you're trying to do that over a bumpy bit of paint, it makes it twice as difficult. So again, I'm taking myself back to the initial drawing, painting stages of this canvas. But it's really cathartic to get rid of all the elements that were kind of bugging me about it. Again, this perspective of this crossroads is got to come out down here, so I need to put that in as well, just to have a sense of believability that she's in this space. This ground closest to it will have a bit more refinement and detail in it, because it's closest to us. We can see more detail in it as it goes obviously towards the horizon line. You're not going to see anything much up here, so it's going to be quite dark because it's a dark night. But you might get an indication from the odd rock or tuft of blade of grass or something. Again, just softening up any of those paint blobs. She's much more uniform now. I think where I'm losing some of my angles a little bit on here, I'll bring this down this way a little bit. Some of the lines kind of gone off to the right, so the point of perspective would be about here. You can't even see on if we move that there. This perspective going off in this direction, the point of perspective will be about there, which is off canvas. But I've got to have it kind of flowing into the picture. So I'm going to put that in. Again, where the original crossroads was down here somewhere. I just want to get rid of that kind of highlighted area that was part of it. And carrying that on. can refine this more as I go on, and how that interacts with that hand. It gives the believability that that hand is in front of this, but as it's not really rendered or painted yet, it's not really looking that way. I suppose giving a little bit of an indication that it's come forward, but there's not much refinement in it, so it looks a bit fluffy pink cloud. But certainly with this horse, how I can start to build some structures into that as well. Since it's a dark horse, there's going to be certain elements which are darker, which would be in the carriage of the horse. Now it's going to get lighter as it comes around. So the neck will come down and meet it that way. The back of the horse. Its hindquarters. Darker down here. Foreleg. Let's stick out a little bit that way. Come back this way. Again, this is very much more structural. That's why I've got a reference picture of a horse, because I don't know horses that particularly well. Understanding how thin your legs are in comparison with the musculature of them, you need to kind of go to these things, you need to kind of see what they are to understand their structures. So I've got reference pictures of horses, but not particularly in this position. I'm just looking at how that tail would actually hang, where it would come out from, how much of the bum I could see on the other side. Kind of come up from about that point there and hang down. So I would still then get to see this part of his leg. And it comes back out this way. Become quite angular and sinewy, the horse's legs. Should everybody else's horses go, it doesn't look like that. Hopefully it will do at the end. And it goes down that way. This back leg. I don't know what the particular term for the is that ankle bone. Change positions because I'm getting a bit stiff, getting old. Over on Twitch, hey, nice pin. You're doing right now. Cheers, Diggy. Digi Grease. Yeah, it's a painting of a friend who is holding a little black horse, a dark horse. And I'm trying to make it as believable as possible, so I'm trying to get the musculature of a horse I've never painted before right off a reference that is not quite the same. I'm using a bit of my imagination as to how shapes of things need to move around. So I'm kind of did this painting ages ago. I'm going to reintroduce myself back to it. I'm repainting it over the top again before I can finish it. So hopefully this all makes sense. Belfast Print Workshop, hello, you've just joined, and Loka G joined as well, and also we got Lawrence Scott. Oh, Lawrence Scott, hello, good to see you. And Sashi79 joined us over on Instagram. A few people just joined. So yeah, working on this picture. This is part of Art Cat. We're doing a lot of art and having a chat about it. It's down to you guys. If you want to know more, talk about things, ask the questions. It's down to you. I'm taking you through the processes and sometimes the struggles and the nature of my work and things like that. But it doesn't mean to say it's all about me. It's not. It's more to do with you and what types of things that you want to see. So if there's particular things that you're struggling with in your work, or questions you have about artwork in general, or art in general, a discussion about certain topics, you're more than welcome to do it here. Lazy Creative, hello, you just joined us as well. Good to see you. So yeah, this is literally going through one of those things that we've all faced, which is having a painting which really you're struggling with. Angela, you just joined us over there on Facebook as well. As you paint the black along that edge, do you ever paint over the edge and spoil the line? Yes. We've all been there. When you paint a line about something, and I don't know, like your muscle spasms, or you go into a twitch, it's a case of just paint over it again, or rub off what you've got on there and repaint it. We all go through that element of painting where things just go wrong, and that's part of what this is about. It's where painting did not work particularly well. I thought it worked at the time, got to a stage and realised it didn't, wasn't too sure how to rectify it and change it. Was reluctant to in a certain part because I was happy with certain elements, but individually. So I was happy with the hand that I painted, and I was happy with the likeness that I'd got, and all these things were individually okay, but collectively just didn't work because there were different scales and there were different colours, and it was throwing the painting out, and I wasn't too sure about how to rectify it or change it. And part of it is about being brave and just painting over where it needs to change. So spoiling a line edge, yeah, that happens over time, but you just repaint it back in, and when you realise, oh, it is that simple. If it's not right, paint over it, or scrape it back and repaint it again, or turn over the page and redo it. It's that simple. Where we are, I think we're all that inner perfectionist of getting it right, that search of being right all the time. I mean, it doesn't go right, being reluctant to acknowledge it and change it, but it is actually that easy. As hard as it is to actually pick the paintbrush up and do that again, it's okay. It's part of the process. You get better at doing straight lines, you paint more of them. There's a thumb sticking out of this horse's bum right now, where this is where the hand was before, and the hand is now down here, so the hand had to change. So what I'm going to do is just paint this part of the crossroads back in. Just to give an indication about where that back leg is going to go and where that bum is. I'm kind of leaving this kind of pinkish glow at the moment around certain things. That'll disappear and I'll embed into the picture as edges find and meet edges as I start to lay the groundwork in for this crossroads. And how it works, and those pink lines will disappear. The structure around the horse will be believable in that space, so I need to soften some lines that will disappear, and I need to crisp lines up so that it becomes a stronger contrast, as I can see through where these lines go. For his body, the leg will come down the other side, about there, I was unsure to begin with whether to have his that front leg kind of coming up, and I just thought it's a little bit twee. I actually want it maybe a little bit stronger, so having it stood on all four legs, certainly more sinewy. Refine that foot a little bit, but it means that this other leg will come down this side. And let's help me figure out how round this belly will be at this point. It's got to obviously come up underneath his legs that we can't quite see, but it's got to be believable. That's the roundness of the horse. So got to give that space to do that. And then his neck coming up. You see, in this particular one, I've got his head turned looking back on me. How that neck will actually come back into that body that way. How that part of his kind of his front foreleg, that muscle there, is going to come forward. Then gives you structure to this head. Like that. If that makes sense. So we're starting to see that horse kind of slowly emerge as well. It feels more fun for me to paint this. It probably is more frustrating for people to watch it because it's a lot of random marks on the canvas. But overall, when you kind of stand back and look at it compared to where it was, I think you'll be able to see where the structures are better. Figuratively, she seems much more solid. It looks like there is beginnings of a horse sat on a palm of hand, walking up her forearm a bit. It feels like she's in this space, whereas before the perspective was wrong, the horizon line was wrong, elements were all wrong. Collectively there's lots of things that needed to change. I didn't know how to change them. There was painting issues I wasn't too sure about. There's lots of elements there which I needed to go off and learn. That's why it's taken a while to get re-engaged with these. It kind of got to hit a wall of my understanding, my painting, and I couldn't quite see past it. Angela, you were saying, does it cause many expletives when painting over lines and things go wrong? I've stopped swearing so much at myself, kind of see the painting almost separately, so I can see the painting better. Helps me paint it. So when the lines are right, I'll go, oh god, that's expletive. That's wrong. It's always that's wrong, not oh I did that wrong. I see it as oh that's wrong. That needs to change. It gives me much more objectivity over my work. That I then have a freedom. Yes, I'm the one painting it, and I have to take ownership of it. But when I can see it separately of other than me, I can see it for what it is, and therefore that just needs to move down. I just move it down. So when the horizon lines were wrong, I mean, literally the horizon line was down here before, and I was trying to squish in a crossroads that she was on, and it just was not believable. It needed space, and it needed to increase the horizon line and the space in which this crossroads was actually on. Um, there'll be elements on there which I can refine and change and tweak as I go along, but the structures, I needed to get the structures back in. So that's what today was about. It's not so much about the refinement of it, it's about increasing the size of her head and her face to make it still look like Julie, but I needed to increase the size of her head to match the size of her hands, to match her figure and her body, to put her in that space. Those things had to change, and if I didn't change them, it would never look right, and I would always be dealing with the frustration of it. So coming back to the element that you often have, everybody has problems with, is not beating yourself up about it. Try and identify the things that you can change and change them. Take some of the pressure off. You have more verbal control than me, and I always blame my own stupidity. Well, don't. Because, yeah, we all make mistakes. We all do stupid things in our painting. We all get lost into the minutiae of stuff, and we know we need to be objective and stand back. We all do it. And yeah, when it does fluff, who cares if you swear at your own picture? But blame it. Stand back. Take ownership of it and change it. But I could look at this and beat myself up all day long about all the elements that were wrong, and I should have seen them, and I should know, because I talk and I teach and I do it myself, and oh, the drawing's better, why did it go wrong on this one? And I just need to change it, and I'd rather concentrate on changing it than beat myself up. Life will beat you up enough, so be kind to yourself, but be honest with your artwork about what needs to change and change it. Do you get me? If it's not in the right place, shift it. If an eye's too low down on the face when you're doing a portrait, move it. Does it need to go up, down, left or right? Shift it. For painting, the horse needed to come forward, it needed to be on an arm that was believable. The hand I really liked that I'd painted initially. It needed more refinement, but I was happy with it. It was just in the wrong place and needed painting it again, so I've moved it down. It's nowhere near as as well painted as it was before, but it will be, and it'll be more of a believable painting, and it'll be a better painting for it because I've shifted it. I'm more happy with the fact I've shifted it than I was prior to it being shifted and it just looking not right, and that being the constant reminder of my own mistake, if you know what I mean. I do try, and I will try harder, Angela says over on Facebook. Yeah, we all try. And this is the case. This is a similar thing for every painting. You take your artwork and you push it to as far as you can go with it, and then you refine what you know for the next painting. And you push that as far as you can go, and then you refine that for the next painting. And it's a growth. You know, if I'm still painting as many mistakes in hopefully 10 or 20 years time, I might need to have a word with myself about why am I constantly going over the same mistakes. Am I rushing too much at the beginning part? Have I got all guns blazing, all enthusiastic, and just painting everywhere, and I'm not thinking about it? So maybe I need to take time to pause a bit more often, maybe. But this painting's been sat in the studio, which has been wrong for quite a while, and it's taken me quite a while to see it. And yeah, other paintings don't work like that. Other drawings don't work like that. Other drawings you can see your errors going slightly askew, and you can rectify them quite quickly. But sometimes you do a picture and you just don't know what's wrong with it and why it doesn't feel right. It takes you time to analyse it. If you've got a group of friends around you, other artists that you trust and know well, to get critiques from, that's great. Other people who are around you in life can often give you good objective advice, but sometimes they can't quite see it either, and they might just see a horse, a well painted horse, go, oh, that's a brilliant horse, love that, but you yourself will know it's not quite right, because where I had it literally flat and horizontal, to the picture canvas, it was not right, never was going to be. This will be a better horse. So you have to trust yourself as well. Trust yourself to know if something's not right, you can change it, to identify what it is. And that's how you kind of move something on. You know, being tenacious and sticking with it is a challenge, and it is exhausting sometimes. That's what I want to kind of acknowledge to you, that sticking with it and pushing through and struggling with it, and eventually when you get there you feel much more accomplished because you've climbed that mountain, you've got over the hump of something that was a problem in your work, and you get there to the end point where you can stand back and go, I've learnt so much in this picture, and this has taught me an awful lot. So these mammalian portraits, although at the minute there's only 3 of them, about to start the 4th, has taken 2 years to get to 4 paintings. That's an incredibly long time to spend doing a painting, and only being 4 of them. But it's often been hours and hours and hours of sitting there going, how can I do this? Or hours of research, or hours of reading about something, or hours of watching an artist's work and talk about the things. All those things, all those elements have fed in to the point now where I can feel quite comfortable in changing this and making it a better painting. Sometimes it just takes time, and you need to give yourself that time to learn, to pick up new skills, to paint a better painting that will make you more prolific, which will, you know, give you out. It's not necessarily about the speed of your paintings, but the number of paintings that you can create will increase because your confidence in what you know and how you handle paint and how you handle the structure of composition, that will all improve naturally because you'll do it more often. So yeah, the biggest thing to learn is don't beat yourself up to the point of not painting. That ain't gonna work. Enjoy what you do. Yes, it can be frustrating, but see it as other. That horse just needed to move. That all needed over painting. It's always that. You can see it objectively. It's just you're in charge of it. You did it, but you can change it, and that'll make it better. Tenacity. That's the word. Very word I was looking at for in my head that I couldn't find. Tenacity and time is it. So well said, Angela, over on Facebook. It's cool. That's 2 hours now. That's 2 hours of Art Cat on Saturday, which I'll be back next week. I'll be probably working on this painting, or if there's something you want me to tackle, I'll give you a bit of a turnaround again on Instagram. Yeah, so if there's anything you want me to tackle, any problems you're having with your artwork, struggles, difficulties, things, concepts, ideas, inspiration that you've come across, you want to chat and discuss about, please do. Join me here at Art Cat next week, Saturday at 2 o'clock. If you want to message me in the meantime, over on any of the social media platforms or on Instagram and here, and discuss and chat about, talk about things that you may want to talk about, you're more than welcome. IBDP Interiors, hello, good to see you. Thank you for dropping by as well. Sadly, it's just coming towards the end of the stream. I do 2 hours every Saturday. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for joining us. And I will see you again next week. So I have to switch everybody off now in unison, which gets quite difficult when you're working on 4 different social media platforms all at the same time. So I'll say goodbye to Facebook and